All right, let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, this is Omelette Route, Chapter 5, 4. This is a post epilogues alternate extended replay ending in which June's going to happen eventually, hence omelette because egg metaphor, lol. But
Yeah.
also a bunch of other shit. Just because to
Yeah.
make a few omelet, I make an omelet, you gotta crack a few eggs. But okay.
Yeah. So it's a lot going on.
Yes.
All right. A figure emerges from the wreck of Vriska's ship, cloaked in a strange non-aura. For a moment, it sort of reminds you of how Roxy's void powers can manifest, except you get the impression of presence rather than absence. A presence so vast, so deep, that for all intents and purposes, it may not even exist. And in the center of this black hole aura floats the figure of a young girl.
Wait, Jade?
You take a closer look, and yeah, the spooky disembodied figure right in front of you is, in fact, Jade Harley. Only this Jade is several years younger than the one you know, with a hollow hole in the center of her chest, and her face and hands are streaked with bright red blood. Her eyes are open, dark circles that drink in the light and relinquish none of it. She doesn't blink. It takes you a moment. Recognition hits you right over the head. This is the Jade you took to the fight against Lord English, and who you lost track of somewhere in the fray. You haven't given much thought to the alternate versions of your friends you brought along to die, mostly on account of the ethical implications of the whole operation. You realize you never actually saw what happened to Jade, but you kind of just assumed she died and got sucked into the black hole like all the others, now that you take a second to dwell on it.
Lively, actually, but not the one you know. One moment.
With a deep metaphysical sigh, the black hole aura rises up into the air above Jade and starts to coalesce into a physical form. Jade's body, meanwhile, drops unceremoniously to the ground like a chewed up lump of meat. Behind you, you hear a now resurrected Jade give a sharp whine. Oh.
I apologize for the distressing image.
Calliope's voice comes from the pulsating cloud, not quite a sound, but something else entirely. It rings familiar to your ears and to your mind, and for some reason that familiarity leaves you feeling raw and unsteady.
I needed a suitable vessel to manifest in this reality, and your powers were most compatible with my own, Jade. The nature of my being means that I personally can never directly intervene. A muse of space, no matter how powerful, can only ever fall back and wait. The witch plays a much more active and decisive role on the existential stage, and through you I was able to accomplish all I have done. And for that, to the you who can listen, I both thank you. I say both thank you and sorry.
The rest of your friends gather around in a kind of social clump, save for Dirk, who's too busy writhing in pain, Jake, who's still out cold from Vriska's righteous haymaker, and Vriska herself, who's too embroiled in her moment with Terezi. As the cloud completes the metamorphosis into a familiar-looking silhouette, Calliope raises her head and stares directly at you with her deep, hollow eyes half shrouded by her god-tier hood. It feels like she has complete, unrestricted access to every secret your soul tries to bury deep. Like one glance is enough to peel away layers of flesh, bone, and denial, and drag out that which lies concealed. You look down at your feet, a little nauseous.
I knew you would come here.
Rose folds her arms and raises one eyebrow towards the floating cherub hypergod.
Dirk rattled on and on about your presence, as if he knew you were an inevitability that he didn't have the guts to acknowledge. He fears you in his own hypocritical way. Why?
It's an astute and somewhat worrying question, especially coming from someone who, up until maybe 2 hours ago, was little more than a brainwashed robotic thrall for Dirk's unfathomable machinations.
As I am equal to, yet on the opposing polarity from my. I am the most supremely powerful being inside and outside of paradox space that you will ever encounter. Any with the appropriate awareness would be a fool not to be wary.
Calliope raises a wrist. In her green skeletal hand is an ivory wand that draws your gaze with an intensity you haven't experienced since Since the house juju, you realize, you get the sense that, if she wanted to, Calliope could rend the fabric of reality asunder with little more than a thought. Discreetly, tucks your fingers, and wonder if your retcon powers would faze her in the slightest. You doubt it. I kind of get the idea that stopping Dirk was important for a lot of reasons I do and don't understand. And I guess I understand why you had to possess me, given the weird rules about canon and textual sovereignty, but we managed to stop Dirk on our own already, and I think you already knew we were able to do that. Calliope nods slowly. Unlike your Calliope, this one gives nothing away. She's so inscrutable that attempting to read her ends up with your interrogations being redirected towards yourself instead. So, what are you really trying to do here, Callie? Jade's ears go flat against her head as Calliope looks upon her. Jade's always been the most powerful person you've known, green sun or no, but compared to Calliope, she feels as insignificant as an insect skittering between the floorboards, or like a photon being stretched and pulled beyond an infinitely vast event horizon.
My aims are twofold.
Calliope gestures towards the mess that is Dirk Strider post-circuiting.
The first is to extinguish the prince's hold over our textual reality. He is but a child playing with... no matter how great his...
But you just said you couldn't stop all of Dirk's plans, right? So what's going on exactly? What's the point of it all? Calliope turns slowly to look out the ship's window. The alien planet you seem to be orbiting looms there imposingly. You've never really seen a real planet from the outside before, but you get the distinct sense that this world is larger than any of the scrub-generated planets were. It's maybe even larger than Earthsea, too.
It has been used as a cog in the greater cosmic tapestry, a tool to further engender acts of extravertial propagation.
The what?
As if in response, a familiar shape manifests several hundred miles above this planet and ejects a familiar object. A spirograph, the meteor. You watch it trail down into the exosphere, then mesosphere, and lose sight of its glow somewhere between the stratosphere and a layer of strange gray clouds. A pit in your stomach opens up at the sight.
The game. The game which has gone through countless names, iterations, but which has always maintained the same purpose, to provide a crucible for newer, higher birth beyond even my scale of comprehension. To enable reality's billions of cycles in the future to exist in the first place. Are we all, and are we ever, is but a drop of water in a river so vast that it is impossible to understand. A river that, even if an entire universe designed to stop it, would continue its flow past eternity.
Another meteor opens up and shoots down to the planet below, marginally larger than the last. You've never seen the reckoning from this perspective. There's something ominously captivating about watching the meteors fall, one by one, onto a world that was born for the sole purpose of this grand act of destruction. You find yourself thinking about your old planet again. A world that was destroyed twice over by Spurb, and once by the total collapse of your entire home universe. It's a quietly orchestrated procedure. You want to say it's beautiful, but then you think about the billions of lives below about to be snuffed out over the next 24 hours and come away feeling a little queasy. So, you're saying that even though we try to make a universe without Suburb and all the suffering, it's still going to happen regardless?
In the same way that all created matter has an inherent propensity to consume energy, yes. Even though we're currently residing within an offshoot timeline inside a non-canon existence, the three pillars of truth, essentiality, and relevance hold only meaning from your frame of reference. The interconnected flow of all things is unbound by rules and procedures that are wholly arbitrary in its eyes. Canonicity only matters to a small portion of beings within an even smaller existence. I can accept that line of reasoning, I suppose. However, I am concerned on one point. Our universe already has a preordained important suburb session. The one that you and your brother are fated to play in the dying breaths of our natural timeline. An important session, yes. Still a fruitless one. Tell me, how many failed games were initiated on your homeworld? How many barren offshoots were formed only to wither and die without accomplishing a thing?
Rose looks down, face scrunched in concentration. It's been too long since you've seen her so lively.
To make it more palatable to your perspective, consider the following. The existence you presently occupy is dubbed Universe C. The implication here is that you came from Universe B, which was propagated by the 12 players from Universe A. For this trend to continue, your universe is obligated to produce a Universe D, which will then bring forth Universe E, and so on. No matter how relevant or irrelevant these realities, they must exist, and do exist.
Okay, that kind of makes sense in some esoteric bullshit way. What the fuck do you and Dirk have to do with this grand universe cycle or whatever?
Everything.
Calliope trains her spooky gaze directly onto Dave, who shrinks a little. Cockhead grabs Dave's hand and stares the cherub down, seemingly oblivious to, or in defiance of, the power she exerts.
Oh, gee, what a rewarding and thought-provoking answer. I'm so glad we came all the way across the universe, went through all we did for you to float there and give us a one-word answer. Truly, I'm fucking thankful.
Calliope tactfully raises a hand, shutting the incipient tantrum down before it can stall her exposition dump.
Ascension to the ultimate self is the one thing that can threaten this order. As you may be aware, the dissolution of your own boundaries gives you access to all your possible selves, and all the realities within which they dwell. The relationship between what we call universes is not one of linear progression, given that universes earlier and later in the chain can intersect and interact. And the more eventful a universe is, the more it is acknowledged by others of its kind. It just so happens that the existence we originate from is incredibly eventful indeed. We exist in the consciousness of countless realities both higher and lower than our own. Access to the ultimate self gives us access to these realms we have no business meddling within.
Is directly involving ourselves in outside universes really that existentially dangerous? How come?
All realities can only exist through the input and perception of their audiences and observers. They must have a decent story to tell, stories which are normally simple and self-contained. But that's not the case with us, is it?
Calliope shakes her head.
Our reality is so expansive and complicated that it cannot sustain itself from within. For realities such as ours, our entire survival is predicated upon the basic ability of intelligent beings, all real and hypothetical planes of existence to give a shit. When you have the ability to damage how your existence is perceived from without, you threaten a dissolution even greater than that of canonical decay. You deny the ability for new universes and new experiences to be born. The Prince, in his quest to make everyone truthful, essential, and relevant again, within the context of our perceivable existence, threatens our ability to be taken seriously, our ability to inspire. He cannot stop the flow of the extravertal stream, but he can pollute the waters through channels open to us as a result of the canonical reality forced into being by the absolute will of a tyrannical demiurge. All it takes to undo all the good in our existence is for one individual to declare a particularly unsavory version of events canon and have our audience turn on us. It has been that way since Lord English's corrosive, stunted ascension. In essence, that is the true extent of my brother's threat. He made us all interesting.
A silence falls over you as Calliope finishes up her monologue. The glow from the spirograph portals outside bathes the ship in a variety of soft neon hues. It reminds you of sitting in the back of your dad's car, watching the end of all things unfurled before your very eyes. Quite the fascinating and lengthy discussion there. Truly, I am feeling enlightened. Only you have failed to explain your aims and means in any kind of useful way at all.
Yes, I believe we're due further clarification here. A beautiful soliloquy, but that A+ is off limits until you can provide us with some substance.
Calliope tilts her skull head ever so slightly towards Rose and Kanaya, as if to impatiently side-eye them. It's a braver move than you could ever attempt, knowing the dispositions of the pair under scrutiny.
My second aim is to facilitate the optimal circumstances under which our universe can propagate. This will be done through playing the role of this game's passive overseer, protecting the players from narrative pitfalls, allowing them the opportunity to grow and diverge without toppling all that came before. I will function as the gate into the foundation upon which they will build the next iteration.
So, what? We're gonna have to go another round of Spurbs that you're gonna play Spooky Disembodied DM, making sure we don't fuck up so hard we accidentally shatter the 4th, 5th, and 6th walls?
No, Dave. She'll be embodying Skya to force the outcome of our session, correct?
Calliope shakes her head.
You will not be involved in this iteration of the game. As creatures of canon, any further realities by nature curve back into your universe, rather than expand past your self-imposed boundaries into new and uncharted territory. One cannot be a god of two universes at once, after all. And in order to enforce this, I must intervene in every possible timeline, where the prince has a stranglehold, and rob them of their canonical values, so that he cannot taint what is to come. Eventually, the pathways will be so cut off that the mere concept of the ascended composite ultimate self will lack any kind of canonical weight.
Rose frowns a little, like she can't quite buy what Calliope's selling.
So, for our own good, we can't afford to keep mattering? Nothing so crude as that. Again, recall that inhabiting canon is to inhabit one timeline, out of an infinite number, from any perspective but your own. Nothing marks what you call canon any more or less special. You will continue to exist, with your stories and stakes and developments intact, just safely cordoned off from all planes of existence. You can grow as you please without risking your own undoing. This is what Dirk failed to understand. The solution to his existential discomfort was to embrace the myriad of opportunities held by Fanon, to find a new audience that would prefer what-ifs over destroyed happily ever afters. This is what I bestow upon you all. It is up to you to decide what to do with it.
From across the room, Jake finally wakes the fuck up. Or decides to get up, at least. He saunters across the room and joins up with Jane and Roxy, shooting Calliope a wary look.
This might come across as a tad dim of me, Miss Spooky Ghost Callie, but if we're being permanently decommissioned from the old cosmic stage, who's going to be taking up the mantle, if you don't mind me asking? Jake, that's actually a really good question. Wow, okay.
Roxy puts a hand on his hip and looks Jake up and down, as if he's reevaluating all he thought he knew about one of his oldest and dearest friends. To be honest, you never pegged Jake as the most savvy type either. Something about his judgment and perception always seemed a little clouded.
I'm surprised too. Normally, whatever thoughts I have seem to get lost in translation and come out as bewildering hogwash.
Jane says nothing, but raises an eyebrow. She's probably biting back some kind of problematic remark in service for her desire for positive character growth. Calliope seems unaffected either way by Jake's sudden competence.
The game will be played by individuals from the first timeline severed from the prince's reach, the one where his will was denied from the outset. Wait, so the timeline where...
Rose nods to herself, as if figuring out how to slot in the last piece of puzzle.
I'm surprised, given how things seem to be turning out in there. There was a great deal of promise in the irrelevant and the forgotten. The void nurtures just as it obfuscates.
So, who are these new players, then? You certainly built the suspense up enough.
If your curious minds truly wish to know.
Something about the way Calliope says it makes you feel a little uneasy. He's hesitant. Why? You watch as she turns toward the crashed ship, slowly, trying to ignore the sudden influx of palpitations.
You may come out. The prince has been contained. Finally?
Oh, we got it. No, go for it.
Finally? It took you long enough.
I don't think that's actually Briss. That's probably...
It's Brissy, apparently. Yeah. I got a DM saying it's Brissy.
Nice.
I voice Brissy the same way I voice Friska.
That's fine.
They're basically clones.
I don't voice Frissy, but I do voice Friska, so that works out well.
Well, that was good. Fun.
I like that. I like people that take shots at Homestuck, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. This whole thing is a shot at Homestuck, too.
Uh-huh.